Welcome my friends to this tutorial on the complete repair of the Ego LM2000S, the 56 volts electric lawnmower. Again, this is a tutorial to show you the repair of the amber light that comes on as you just seen, and the mower just shuts off. And also we'll look at a few things that could be causing that. Also a few things that could be causing the mower just not to come on at all, with or without a light. And we'll look at a few things about the battery, how to replace or repair the battery, especially when it has a red light. We'll also look at replacing the main parts of the lawnmower, which are the motor and the controller board. This is the light, the indication light for the mower. In this case, the light is blinking amber. After it flashes green for a few seconds, it blinks amber and the motor shuts off. Just to get familiar with some of the parts of the mower, this is the battery assembly, the battery cup or cage, whatever name you want to call it. That is all we need to see in this diagram for now, but you can also get this from online if you need to order any of the parts. They are numbered on the Ego website. You can put in the model number, which is in this case LM2000S, and you should be able to find this in each of the numbered parts on the website so you can order them. This is another drawing, and here I show you one of the main components that could be causing the mower not to come on, and it's looks like a switch or some sort of circuit breaker that activates when you close the motor. The handlebars. When you close them or you stow them away, fold them away, this switch opens and the mower cannot be turned on. It's a safety switch. It's supposed to be closed so the mower can come on, and this little tab right here is what pushes this button in the switch and closes it, so you can then extend this handlebar and engage the motor or turn on the mower. This switch, also number 67, is also, I believe, one that you put the key in and it's supposed to be closed before you turn it on. It's another safety switch. Make sure that's working. And also there's a switch that turns on and off here in this handle assembly. I believe it may be this one. This one right here, 57. 53. So see which one it is. I'm not really sure. That one is good on my mower, but it may be bad on yours. So see which one is labeled as a switch, 53 or 55. And it's again supposed to close when you extend the handle. That way you can turn on the mower. This is also another important drawing for the assemblies, especially here these parts, which include the motor and the motor control board. The motor control board comes in one entire assembly. I believe it's number 29, and the motor itself is also an entire assembly, can come as an entire assembly, and I believe it's number 23. Verify this by yourself. Go into the website and look in this up, and this gives you an idea of what it takes to remove these items. To remove this board is nothing but about 4 screws, plus of course disconnection of several wires. To remove the motor, you not only have to remove the board, but also these 4 long bolts that go all the way through and connect to this plastic chassis or frame of the mower. There are also 3 other bolts that hold the motor in the chassis that also basically tie it to the a ring that you will see when you remove it. I believe it's already on there. It may not be showing it. This is a close-up of that. As you can see, this is the board, 29. The motor, I believe, is 23. Verify that and look it up in case you need or want to order these parts. This is a picture of my mower before any repairs were done. I took the top cover off, and I will show you how to take the entire plastic cover off here shortly. But this is what it looks like when you do take it off. You have to disconnect this ribbon cable from the top of the frame, where this is for your indication light. There is a wire harness or a series of wires that go connected to the board. Look for any damage, any breaks, any sign of burning, cuts, or abrasion in these wires, including the ribbon cable. If it's kinked too much or crushed, that may be a problem. Look for signs of corrosion in the board or components blown up, like this capacitor here may be blown up. Look for things that are disconnected, like this cable right here with the sealant. The sealant may have come off, and that cable may have, that connector may have come loose. Make sure it is tight. This ribbon cable connection, make sure it is in place and it is secured and with sealant on it. If you do remove the sealant, make sure you place more sealant again, because these things are can easily come loose during use because of the vibration. There's a lot of screws on the bottom of the mower that you must remove before the top lighter plastic cover can be removed to expose the motor and all the other components. This is a bottom view. As you can see, there are many screws. Pretty much every small hole has a screw in it. You may have to have a long Phillips head screwdriver so you can remove all of them. I recommend using a hand held screwdriver instead of a cordless or powered. That way you don't strip those screws. So remove the screws, remove the top carefully by snapping the top little by little, step by step, and then expose the top. This is another top view again. There is a fuse here. Make sure that doesn't look damaged. Make sure the fuse doesn't look burnt, or you may also test it with a continuity tester with a multimeter. Put the leads on the metal pieces, metal parts, exposed metal. You may have to work back some of the covering or jacket insulation and do a continuity test on it. These positive and negative wires, also make sure they are not corroded and they are on that board. Tight, make sure they're tightly or snugly put on there with a flathead small screwdriver. Here shows that cable again. Make sure that cable is not damaged, not broken, especially in these pinch points. That's another view of the fuse. It's a larger fuse. There's a part there in case you need to replace it if for any reason you suspect or you find out that it's bad. Again, this is another view of the board. This board right here has signs of corrosion. Even though it's completely sealed, you can still see some corrosion, perhaps. This board ended up being bad. I had to replace it. Take note of all the cable connections, because if you replace this board, everything will have to be connected as it was. Make sure you do put this zip tie back on. I had the misfortune of not putting it on, and this connection came loose once I completed the repair, so I had to remove the entire cover once more and to reconnect this and glue it so it won't come off again. But make sure this zip tie is put back once you replace this board if you need to. Take note of all the connections. Some of these will have to be spliced to the other cables. You need to cut it. Those that need to be spliced need to be cut, a few, more than a few inches, at least 6-7 inches away from the board. That way you have enough slack cable so you can splice it, strip it back and splice it. In this case, I had to replace the motor. The motor on this unit, on this lawnmower, was shot. It was the ball bearings were seized, corroded, so I ended up replacing it. This is the part number. Also, you can find it on the Ego website, but you can find it on other websites as well, just by typing in the model number of your lawnmower and the word motor, or this number right here, I believe should also pull it up. This is the top view once the motor assembly has been removed. Again, the motor assembly has already this plate on it, the brand new one. No need to remove these 4 bolts. They are part of the assembly, and all you need to do is, there are 3 screws that hold that motor and the plate in place. 3 bolts, excuse me. And those 3 bolts are going to be these 3 right by that center hole. This is the bottom of the mower. The board has the 4 screws that go attached to the motor. This is another view at the board. Closer look at the top. Ensure that this freely rotates and the motor looks in good shape. So you put the motor from the inside, then you attach these 3 screws with the shaft poking through to the center, in the center, just like that. Once you secure the motor in place, put the board on with the 4 screws. Then go ahead and put the fan assembly, the plastic fan assembly, through the shaft. Put the washer, the thin flat washer first. Attach your fuse assembly. Put zip ties on it. Make sure you make your connection, the ribbon cable. This is the switch that you must make sure it's in place. This is supposed to close when you turn that shaft, which is your handlebars. When you open up your handlebars, this switch closes. Make sure it stays in place. I added a little bit of grease there, that way it slides in and out without much friction. Make sure that these cables are not going to be damaged. I added tape there and zip tie. These are the 3 cables that go to the battery assembly. As you will see, this is another additional fuse. Make sure that fuse tests okay with a continuity tester. You may take the opportunity to sharpen your blade if you have a used mower that you're working on, which is most likely the case. Sharpen the edges with a grinder. And then you can put your blade on. There's a flat side that slides into the flat side of the shaft. Put your two washers, thick washers, and your bolt, tighten it. Make sure you put a thin shaft or screwdriver to hold the blade from turning when you're tightening it, tightening this bolt up. This is a 14 millimeter bolt head or a 9/16 standard bolt head. This is the motor assembly already in place. Make sure you take care of these cables. Don't pinch them, crush them as you install the assembly, the cover. And it goes like this on the battery compartment or container. There is a small symbol here for negative for the black and a positive symbol here for the red. The blue goes in the middle. Here is another look at that. The way this is installed, you have to put this plastic cover on first, and then once you put that plastic cover, then you can put your make your connection to your light, your ribbon cable, and then you can connect these cables to the battery container and then put the container on. Make your connection, then put your container inside. Make sure before you put your container this ribbon cable is connected to your light. Don't forget that. Ensure your cables are not pinched anywhere. This is a look at the board replacement. I had to go back, remove the covers and everything to replace this board. This board ended up being bad. So this is the new board, as you can see, with some splices of the other cables. Just swap the cables one for one from the other old board to the new one and change out each cable one by one. That way you don't mix up cables or forget where each cable went. I would also recommend taking photos before, during, and after the installation. That way you know what went where and what you're doing if you're not thoroughly familiar with this install. I wrapped and managed the cables, put tape in some areas and zip tie. That way they won't come loose. I put tape here where this pinch point is. That way that vibration doesn't damage the cables. So another look at that. Make sure your cables don't get on the way. Make sure your ribbon cable's installed. And put your plastic cover back on and all of your screws that you had removed from the bottom. There's the mower. Of course, I tested it before putting the cover on. That ribbon cable does not have to be connected, so you test it, make sure everything's working before you put the cover on, of course. Hopefully everything's good still. So to continue, if you have problems with your batteries, I'm going to show you how to fix some of those problems, at least one of those problems, which is your red lights. Some call it the light of death for these batteries, and that means that the battery is either overcharged, but most likely it is undercharged. It lost too much charge, you didn't use it for too long and it lost charge, or you somehow used it beyond its limit, its use limit. It has happened. It happened to me. The BMS, or battery management system, is not perfect. It doesn't protect the battery all the time 100%, and what it's supposed to do is shut down the battery when the battery is either too low or too high, too overcharged, to protect the battery from catching fire or even exploding. This is what your 56 volts lithium ion arc battery looks like. This is a smaller one that I have the red light on. This fits on that mower, as well as the other items I have, tools that work with it, like the weed whacker. And all you have to do is take these lids off from each end. There may be a few screws on the bottom. There looks to be about 5 here for each of the sides, or the side lids. So remove those. Once you remove those, you're going to see a 3 connectors, small connectors with sealant. Remove the sealant gently and then remove the connectors. Pull them out. Make sure that you're gentle and you pull on the connector itself, not the wiring. You don't want to pull any wire out of the connector. No need to remove anything else other than the white sealant. This is what the battery pack looks like. Looks like a smaller pack. These are some of the connectors shown here with the harness for the battery management system, BMS. The battery pack looks this way when removed. You can see the main positive as the thick red wire. Take note of that. There is a main negative terminal. There's a positive terminal with a thick red wire and a negative terminal with a thick black wire. Look for those. Those are important. As you can see here, this is showing the red terminal, main terminal of the battery, and the black terminal. What you want to do when you have a red light and a low battery is check the voltage at these 2 terminals with your multimeter on DC mode. Make sure you got it between 50 volts or over 100 or over 50 volts DC on the over 50 volts DC setting, because these batteries are 56 volts, are supposed to be 56 volts, but they could read anywhere between 30, 40, 50, 60, or even 70 volts. So make sure your range could capture that. If it's too low or too high, go ahead and change it. Change your range on your meter. But you should read a reading of too low. Too low on a 56 volt battery is about 50 or below. If you got a reading of 50, 47, 46, 44, or even 40 volts, then your battery's too low, and that's what caused the BMS to shut it down and show you that red light. So what you want to do is charge this battery. You have to get a 60 volt battery charger and put the charging terminals here, positive on this one and negative on this one, and you have to watch it very closely and carefully. Don't leave, and watch the charge go up to about 50 to 52 volts and then take it off of the charger. You have to watch it from beginning to end because it is directly charging to the batteries, and that charge will not stop until you stop it, and you have to stop it before these batteries overheat and catch fire. Another thing you can do is connect a very well charged battery to these terminals, positive to positive, negative to negative. That way the bigger battery will charge the smaller battery, or the charged battery will charge the discharged battery, hopefully to the point where it will turn on the BMS, the battery management system, again. Once the battery is charged, again, I recommend charging the battery with a specific battery charger for that voltage. They sometimes have battery chargers that are variable voltage, that you can choose the voltage you want to charge to. That's indeed what I used, and I may put the part number for that battery charger that goes up to 49 volts. I charged my battery to 49 volts and it worked fine. The BMS system came back on and the battery now works. So put your connections, your connectors back on, put sealant on them. These batteries get a lot of vibration, so you may want to make sure that they don't come off, the connections. Put your screws back on your lids. Put the lids on, put the screws on, and pushing that green button.